Hey there, Melanie Potock here. We're going to be doing a little Monday with Coach Mel. Anybody out there? And I'll get started. Put a comment in the comment section or give me a like across the screen just so I know you're out there. Give everybody a minute to join us. I know we've got a lot of friends coming in from all around the United States. Hi, Trish. Give everybody just a second here. All right. Yay. Hi, Paige. Super. While everybody else is joining us, just give you a little recap. Hi, Jenna. Of what we're going to talk about tonight. We are going to talk about taking dessert off its pedestal. Hi, you guys. And as a pediatric feeding therapist, I run into this situation quite a bit because parents are really scared and they are worried about their kids' nutritional health, and they get to the point where they just want to eat something. You know, it's like, just give them some cookies, at least he'll eat those. And the problem with that is it can really backfire over time, and it can prevent those kids from becoming healthy, happy eaters. So we're going to be talking about that tonight. I see we've got a lot of people joining in. Hi, you guys. I love it. A lot of people who were here last week as well. Every Monday, I do Mondays with Coach Mel. My name is Melanie Potock, and I'm a speech language pathologist who specializes in pediatric feeding. My absolute love is kids, food, and family. So I also love dessert. I have a big sweet tooth, but I can really see where parents use it as sort of the carrot on the end of the stick to tempt kids to maybe try some vegetables or eat a little bit more dinner, and then they can have dessert. And we're going to talk about how to get away from that and why you want to get away from that. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to go through 5 different reasons why, or ways to get around this, and then we'll take some questions too. I'll try to keep good track of the questions as I see them popping up. I see my friend Helen is here too. All right, let's talk about why parents bribe. As I was saying, just as we got started, parents, and I'm a mom, I get this. Parents tend to bribe when they're worried about their kiddo getting enough good nutrition, but more so getting enough calories. And I'll especially see this when parents have a child who's underweight, perhaps the diagnosis of failure to thrive comes into play, or they're just generally worried about this kid's growth. And unfortunately, they'll often get uninformed information from another health professional saying, just let him eat whatever he wants, but he's got to be heavier the next time he comes back in for his well check. And they meant well, but what they don't understand is that when you let a child eat anything and let them eat whatever they want, and they're already limiting their intake and maybe only have 10 foods that they eat, well, it can really spiral down into a very, very scary situation. So when parents bribe their kids, remember, they want the kids to eat healthy. It's about at least eat something. So it's to alleviate their own fear. And the problem with it is it teaches kids that this okay food, even if it's chicken nuggets, eat another chicken nugget and then you can have some to dessert. That okay food is just okay. And that the yummy food, dessert, is really what you should care about. When we put dessert up on a pedestal like that, it skews the way kids think about food. It makes dessert too important. We don't want kids to value dessert over healthy foods. And one of the main reasons why we don't is that the American Academy of Pediatrics, if you go to their website, they are responding to the recent sugar recommendations, especially when it comes to added sugar, from the American Heart Association. And for example, myself as a grown-up and a woman, I should get 6 teaspoons at most of added sugar per day. Let me show you what that looks like. Pulled out my measuring spoons from my baking drawer today. This little spoon right here, this blue one, is a teaspoon. This one is a tablespoon. It's huge. We're only supposed to get 6 of these a day as a grown woman. Men get a little bit more allowance for it. But for children under the age of 2, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends no added sugar. And that's hard because so many of our cereals and bread products and a lot of our frozen foods that we sometimes will just heat up in the microwave have a little bit of added sugar to them. When you think about it, even a little bit of honey that maybe you're just adding to some pancakes or some maple syrup, that's sugar. So for our little ones under the age of 2, American Academy of Pediatrics says no added sugar. And I think that's pretty hard to do. But I do want you to be aware of it because the reason why they state that is that's the time that children are really developing their palates. And we want kids to develop a wide variety of not just taste, but flavor as well, which is a much more complicated sensory experience than just taste. So if we continually offer foods that have extra sweetness to them, they learn to crave those particular foods. Now, kids over the age of 2, they are only supposed to get, once again, just like me, 6 teaspoons a day. When you think about, I want you guys to do a little homework. When you think about a small Gatorade that I often see kids at the soccer field consuming, that has a lot of sugar in it. When you think about our kids in feeding therapy, a lot of those kids need supplemental milks. They need them. They have a lot of sugar in them. Not all, but many do. When you think about kids who eat a lot of crackers and meltables and cereals because it's all they can eat until they start to expand their repertoire in feeding therapy, they're getting a lot of added sugar. 6 teaspoons, that's easy to come up with. Y'all should try just seeing if you can only eat 6 teaspoons a day. Even in your coffee creamer, if it has a little bit of sweetener, you have 3 cups of coffee. I know I do per day. I just got in a lot of sugar. So if you're thinking about bribing your kids with dessert, remember you're now adding more sugar to their daily allowance. That isn't something we want to do as parents, as much as I love dessert too. So let's talk about a few solutions. Okay, first one, serve it with the meal. This is actually my favorite solution. If you'd like your kids to have a little something sweet, you can just serve it with the meal. And I'm talking about an inch-by-inch piece of brownie. Or, you know what's perfect for this? Little shortbread cookies or a couple Teddy Grahams would be great. You can put them in a little cup, be super cute. Put it on the plate with the rest of the food. Now, there's no opportunity to bribe with food, or excuse me, bribe with dessert because it's already there. And it's a great reminder for parents not to keep that dessert up on a pedestal. It just happens to be another food that's also yummy and happens to be a little bit sweet. But choose something that's small and low in sugar. That's the key. For example, these are my favorite cookies. I'm like addicted to these. I won't even tell you the brand. They're so yummy. I have to be gluten-free, so they're gluten-free, and it's a big treat for me. But you know what? Not that big of a cookie. It's got almost 2 teaspoons of sugar in it. Oh my gosh, and you bet I eat 2 of these. Well, I just had more than half of my daily allowance of sugar. So when you're putting something on the kiddo's plate, remember, keep it pretty small and pick something like a little shortbread cookie that's going to be lower in sugar or some Teddy Grahams, etc. Just checking in here. Ooh, I love Nicole says we do fruit after the meal. I really like that. you know, fruit is also very sweet. Does have a lot of natural sugars. It's one of the reasons why we don't recommend fruit juice for kids, because when you just squeeze all the juice out of a piece of fruit, you're not left with the fiber or some of the other nutrients. You just have vitamin C and sugar, frankly. But fruit is a daily part of our life. There are a lot of benefits to it, especially the fiber. And I love that idea of having that after, or maybe with. That's a great idea. Let's go ahead and keep going here and talk about another solution to taking dessert off its pedestal. Save it for the weekend. Now, this is something we talk about in Raising a Healthy, Happy Eater. When kids come to you and say, oh, can we make some cupcakes tonight? Or you're in the grocery store and they spot all those blue cupcakes. What is up with blue cupcakes? they spot all those blue cupcakes and they want some. Your response can be, if you'd like, can be, you know what, those do look really good. Why don't we make some cupcakes this weekend? We can make them on Friday. And we'll make them together, and maybe we can even make those new ones that have applesauce in them. You love apples. Or pick some sort of healthier version of a cupcake if possible. And I have friends who are amazing at decorating cupcakes, and they make them for special events and parties, etc. You know, that's okay. But the point is that you're making an event out of creating those together. It isn't about eat this and then you get that cupcake. So you can always just save it for the weekend. And what that does is it allows you to have an out Monday through Thursday. Oh, you know what? I really want cupcakes too. Today's Tuesday. And the rule in our family is that we make those on the weekend, or we can have those on the weekend. So maybe you and I could go to the bakery and pick out some really special ones for a party on Saturday. That sort of thing. Okay, let's go on a little bit more. This one might seem a little bit unusual to you. Bake less, cook more. What do I mean by that? Well, this is something that I think I made a mistake with my own kids. I love to bake with kids. I often would bring my girls into the kitchen to make cookies or to bake a special cake, and we always made our birthday cakes. They were always homemade. But I didn't at first bring them into the kitchen that often to help me cook. And, you know, here I've written books about that, and I'm always telling people to do that, but that's because I've learned from my own mistakes. And now my girls and I love to cook together. It's a big, big deal. But I really want to encourage you, parents and therapists, to share this with families, is that rather than always pulling kids into the kitchen to make cookies, which is fun, pull them into the kitchen to cook a little bit more, to expose them to healthy options, to help them. They can chop up all the ingredients for the evening salad. They can wash the vegetables that you're making that night. They can help to stack things in the slow cooker the night before and help to create dinner for the next day. Pull these kids into the kitchen more often for cooking than for baking. And what that does is it evens out the playing field a little bit. But if you are going to do some desserts together, consider creating healthy desserts together. This is always tricky for me, is to get the sign to line up with the screen. Create healthy desserts together. Now again, I'm a realist. You guys, I love a good piece of cheesecake. Don't get me wrong. It's just that there are so many opportunities for parents to get their kids in the kitchen, and if they want to make a sweet treat, it can be healthy. Let me show you an example. So I know some of you know that I have a new book coming out tomorrow. It's called Adventures in Veggieland, and every single vegetable in this book, there's 20 in all, every single one includes a vegetable dessert. Sounds crazy, right? Let me show you an example. If you turn to the asparagus chapter, let me see if I can get it in the screen there for you. There you go. To the asparagus chapter, that little girl is actually making chocolate and asparagus fondue. Have you ever heard of that before? Here's my point. Most little kids don't know that fondue doesn't have asparagus in it most of the time. So in that book, you'll find fun recipes like that. They're all a little bit lower in sugar, but they got some sugar in there too. They're dessert. They're sweet treats. If you pull kids into the kitchen and part of that fondue happens to be some steamed and pulverized asparagus that you just put into a food processor, and they stir it in, they just think it's a part of it. Have you ever made avocado chocolate pudding? That's a popular one on the internet. And how do kids know that avocado isn't just a normal part of chocolate pudding? So think about that. Think about pulling kids in to the kitchen and creating some healthier desserts. You can find them in my book, Adventures in Veggieland, but there are a ton on Pinterest. So much fun. And remember, they don't know that's not normally in there. Why not give it a try? Let's talk about, see if I've missed any here. Yeah, I did. I missed the last one. It's not about deserving a treat. It's just a treat. Let me talk about that with you. So often I go into families' homes and they'll say, oh yeah, you know, you ate a good dinner. You can have a cookie, you deserve it. I don't want kids to think they deserve sweets. It's just a sweet. A lot of times I'll catch myself when I'm out with my husband and I'll say, you know what, I've been really good all week. I think I'm going to order dessert. I deserve it. No, I don't. I don't want kids to hear those words from me. I just want dessert. It's a sweet treat and I can have it on occasion. I want kids to know, no, we can definitely have that on occasion. I love dessert too. And we can have it with all of these other yummy things as well. So when parents get scared and they absolutely need to give that kid a cookie, especially our kids in feeding therapy where we're worried about their weight, one compromise I usually come up with is that the kids can have something for a bedtime snack, mostly to alleviate the parents' fear. Then I like the kids to have milk if they can drink it because it's very filling. Not very much though, about 6 ounces at the most, and one cookie, and maybe a piece of fruit with it, or maybe something else they enjoy that has some healthy benefits to it. But more importantly, that bedtime snack needs to be pretty small. So think about 1 tablespoon per age is equal to a snack up to about age 6 or 7. So a 5-year-old, let me show you that tablespoon again. 5 tablespoons of a snack. And milk at bedtime is the only time we want to have milk with a snack. This mid-morning snack and the mid-afternoon snack, that needs to be only the 5 tablespoons for a 5-year-old, not milk in addition. They can have water because you want them to be hungry for the next meal. And that brings me to my last point before we start taking questions. One of the reasons we don't want kids to have a lot of sugar is because it throws off their hunger drive. And it's very, very satisfying, especially to just drink down a little bit of juice. That goes right into your bloodstream and instantly you feel better. You don't feel like your sugar's quite so low. But even if you have a cookie, that's easily absorbed into your bloodstream and suddenly you're satisfied. Now remember, when I said to include it with the meal, I said keep it really small so that it doesn't ruin a child's appetite. But if a child only eats a little bit of food and then gets a big old brownie, or gosh, you know what else is really high in sugar is Rice Krispie treats. Those things are really sugary. I love them, but they're really sugary. And they're so light that kids can eat a lot of it. Well, what'll happen is the kids will suddenly feel better and then they'll crash. Well, if you're trying to stick to a hunger schedule where your breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner is 2 to 2.5 hours apart, the kids can't make it till then. and they're an absolute mess, and you have to deal with that. So I always say to parents, you're going to pay the price for this because their blood sugar is going to crash, and you're not going to be able to wait until lunch to feed them again. And then you get into this vicious cycle. So when I'm asking you to take dessert off its pedestal, I'm really asking for the parents' sake as much as for the kids. It's actually going to make life easier for them. So let's take some questions. Let's see what we've got here. Kelly's saying, we love this approach. It's not restricting or allowing to overindulge. It's just smart and teaches good, healthy habits for life. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's what we're trying to do. And Nicole says, I've been teaching my 12 and 9-year-old boys how to saute and cook spaghetti. We try for 10 servings of veggies a day. You're amazing. That is really cool. Anybody have any questions about what we've talked about here? I see my friend Martha's watching as a mom and not as an SLP. Any questions about, let me just see if I can glance through at other comments. All right. Does anybody run into issues where parents don't necessarily understand what a serving size is, where they are really, I walked into a kiddo's home the other day and he was starving, and so the mom had pulled out one of those huge grocery store cookies with all the icing on top. I just got on this cookie because he was starving. Well, that cookie has about 3 days worth of sugar in it, and he's not going to be able to eat well for me. But he had already started to consume it, so, obviously we have to talk later. It's really surprising how much sugar is in various baked goods at the grocery store. What do you do when kids are given 8 to 10 ounces of almond milk per meal? Hi, Deborah. 8 to 10 ounces kind of depends on the size of the kid, but in general, when we're talking about kids, say 10 and under, 8 to 10 ounces of almond milk is way too much. Almond milk is actually pretty sweet and could be often, there's often additional flavorings to it that adds to the sugar content. And what I really prefer is that if kids are going to have milk, they have it toward the end of the meal, and that they only get about 4 to 5 ounces. Kids don't really need that much dairy per day. I know almond milk is a dairy substitute, but along those same thoughts, if they're getting dairy from yogurt or cheese or other sources, they don't really need that much. And man, is that stuff filling. So I talk to parents a lot about that, and sometimes we'll even pick out I'll go and buy them some little juice cups, they're like $1 for those little juice glasses, and we'll use those for milk. Sometimes it's a matter of just pulling the right cup out of the cabinet. Parents don't realize how much they're actually giving. What do you recommend for parents to replace as a bribe rather than as a dessert? That is a great question. Nothing. We don't want to bribe our kids. That is such a good question. Thank you. We don't want to bribe our kids, and here's why. When we bribe kids quickly learn from a very young age to up the ante. So at first, bribery works, definitely. But then the kids get more power out of not giving in. And you have to give them something bigger and better every single time. Or they become these amazing negotiators. They're all going to grow up to be trial lawyers, I'm sure, because they learn to negotiate with mom and dad just want them to eat, and they just keep bribing them with more and more. Or, yeah, that's fine, 2 peas is fine, you can have dessert. When really they were supposed to eat the whole serving of peas. So instead, to your excellent question, we want to reinforce the behavior of eating healthy foods. We don't want to bribe kids to get them to eat it. So the way you reinforce a child's behavior is through positive attention. But it's not positive attention that's obvious, like, oh, good job eating your peas. It's if you see that child starting to eat their peas, that's when I would turn to them at the table and say, you know what? I was really excited when I saw you playing soccer the other day. Do you think you might want to get on a soccer team like Johnny does? I know you really liked his uniform. Just start talking to the kid. That sort of attention is it's a very subtle way of reinforcing that behavior, and it works so well. But what we tend to do as parents is we tend to reinforce not eating by accident, because we start cheerleading our kids. Oh, those peas are really good, you know, mommy made those just for you. Oh, I put a lots of yummy butter on it. I know you love butter. Let's just take a bite. Just take a little bite. Yeah. When you're doing all of that with a hesitant eater, what's happening is they're getting lots of attention for not eating. We want to engage with our children when we see them eating. And if they're not eating, we need to just give them some time and be okay with the fact that some meals are going to be better than others. And most importantly, keep presenting the food. Now, kids in feeding therapy are a little bit different situation because we have very specific skills we're working on with those children. And oftentimes the kids on my caseload, we don't even get to working up to meal times until they can eat a certain amount of food just in feeding practice, you know, away from the table. The great question. Rebecca asked, do you recommend water as the primary fluid with meals and snacks? I do. I recommend water unless there's a medical reason for the child to have something else. I'm okay with milk as the bedtime snack, as we talked about earlier, but it's too filling during the day. Or if kids are going to have milk, I might give them a little box of the Orgain monkey milk that we talked about last week. I'll put it in the comments here for you in just a minute, their website. But you know, that's a good little nutritious carton of milk that comes with a straw that also has lots of vitamins and vegetable powders added to it, so that kids can actually have that as a snack and not necessarily have to have something to go with it. So that's a nice thing to hand to a kiddo in the car in between sports events or on the way home right after school so they can make it till dinner. Let's see. Oh, Kelsey asks, what if the child cannot have water? By the way, Kelsey, I did get your question that you emailed me or messaged me about, and I promise I'll get back to you. It's been a busy day. But anyway, Kelsey, what if the child cannot have water? My son aspirates on thin liquids. We give almond milk with no added sugar and thicken it with yogurt, which does have a lot of sugar in it. So Kelsey, that's a great example of a child with a medical need for having something other than water. And, you know, I know you can thicken water too, but it's not very appetizing. So I really think that you have a reason, a solid reason for doing that. And what you'll want to do is talk to your feeding therapist that as your child begins to eat more foods, as he starts to develop his skill, then you'll be able to reduce that amount of milk and yogurt so that he's not quite so full with it and he can start to fill up with solid foods. You have to just strike a balance there, but it takes time. Let's see. Oh, Creative Speech Lab is here, and they say, is 4 ounces of a yogurt smoothie okay during snack, or is it better to save that for the 3 main meals with water in between as snack? You know, it really depends on the kid. That's a very good question, but I think it would depend on the child and what they're eating during meals and how important that particular snack is for them. I know a lot of the kids on my caseload don't eat well at school, so that 3:30 snack right after school is so important. And sometimes we'll actually make that a mini meal. So I think you have to kind of look at the big picture before you make I don't want to make a comment that it would apply to everybody. I think you just have to look at that individual child. Let's see. Oh, Anna has a good suggestion, which is to try flax milk by Good Karma. It has super low sugar, and there's one with pea protein. Oh, I like that. I haven't tried that yet. See, I learned so much from doing these Coach Mel's, Mondays with Coach Mel with all of you. Jenna says, for kids that won't drink water, do you recommend diluting the milk or juice? How much water should you add? Oh, good question. Okay. First of all, if you go on my website and go to my blog It's melaniepotock.com, but I'll add it to the comments here for you too. And just put in the word water. You'll find a couple articles on helping kids learn to drink more water. It's especially important for kids who suffer from constipation as well. So just a side note there, but let me give you a few answers right now, Jenna. The way I'm smiling because I literally just left the house talking about this today. A really wonderful 10-year-old with autism who drinks juice. And we were talking about how to slowly dilute that juice until it becomes water with a splash of juice in it. Well, especially for our kids with sensory issues who can detect the tiniest little change in their milk or their water or their juice, whatever it happens to be, I do it very systematically. So I get a piece of paper and I write down the date and I fill up a Nalgene bottle, you know, one of those tall ones that has the big lid. I don't know how many ounces are in there. It's like 36 ounces. And I fill that up with the juice, let's say. And then I take a tablespoon out of there and I put it back in the carton. And then I add 1 tablespoon of water. It doesn't sound like very much, right? But so many of my kids know if I did that. Anybody else out there have kids like this? It's amazing. Like, you have to be very scientific about diluting these drinks for them. What you want to do is every time you offer them a cup of juice that you're slowly diluting, if the kiddo, take my Starbucks cup here, if the kiddo goes to take a drink and looks at it suspiciously, that's when you stop. So you're going to stay at that dilution for several days until that kid is used to that. And that's why I write everything down. Then another tablespoon comes out. And you know, even this wonderful family I talked to tonight, they are keeping the lemonade container where the lemonade comes in from Trader Joe's. And they're taking that lemonade that they poured into the Nalgene and they've added the tablespoon of water to, and they're pouring it back into the lemonade container from the grocery store, because otherwise the kid gets too suspicious. And you slowly just start getting them used to a lighter taste. And you know what? If kids end up with 8 glasses of water with a tablespoon of grapefruit juice or lemonade or whatever in there too, just add a little splash, that's fine. It's totally fine. I'm seeing a bunch of people I know. It makes me so happy. Let's see. Anybody else have a question? Just make sure I didn't miss anybody. Feel free to chime in if I missed your question here. Let's see. Oh, Rebecca says, my biggest thing with my failure to thrive kiddo will eat roasted asparagus with garlic and Parmesan cheese dipped in mustard, but yet getting to eat other things is nearly impossible. Isn't it funny what some of our kids will eat? And it just blows me away. A lot of times kids find comfort in sameness. And as unusual that combination that may sound very unusual, the fact that it's the same way every time helps that child to eat. So if you are going to branch out to some other foods, try to just branch out by changing one element of that favorite combination and build from there. Let's see, anybody else? Stacy says, my husband is guilty of the 2 more bites and you can have a cookie approach. Oh, good, Stacy. I hope he's watching this. I will definitely download this onto my Facebook page and then my YouTube channel as well, and you could send it to him. Tell him we all said hi. He was a picky eater growing up, and he still is. So he feels bad for our daughter. Yeah, when we present foods that she doesn't like, and he praises her for even trying. I think it's good that he's praising her for trying. What do you recommend to break that habit if you're already started down that road? I run into that a lot, where one of the parents is a very picky eater, and they're always asking you, do you think I passed this trait down to my kid? And they kind of feel like maybe it's their fault, but they also really empathize with that child. And they know it can feel very painful to be a picky eater. So they don't want to see their kid uncomfortable. And oftentimes they'll overcompensate by saying, oh, yeah, you can have that cookie. But also, they don't want to feel uncomfortable because they're reliving a lot of what they went through as a child. The best thing I can do when I'm in feeding therapy with that family, and hopefully this will help you with some ideas for you, is to really help them zero in on that very uncomfortable feeling and that pain, and know that we don't want this kiddo to grow up being an adult picky eater. And that's why you're so worried, because you're an adult picky eater. And so let's take some baby steps to help that child over time. It can take a couple years to really start to expand their repertoire. And you know what? Those baby steps often help the parents too. So it can feel very overwhelming. It's such a big journey. But feeding therapists break it down into tiniest steps and help parents focus on one thing each week. Let's see. Oh, hi, Speech and Feeding of Frisco. I have a 1-year-old who has finally gotten his reflex managed. That's good. He will eat oatmeal mixed with his formula, but we are struggling to move to actual baby food. I'm assuming you mean kind of like purees. We tried mixing a small amount of baby food with the oatmeal. Any other thoughts? Okay, if he'll eat oatmeal mixed with his formula, just put in the comment for me, do you mean out of the bottle? Or do you mean with a spoon? Is he eating the oatmeal with a spoon? I'm going to kind of assume he is. Okay. But the comments come in a few minutes later after I ask you, so bear with me. If he's eating the oatmeal mixed with formula from the spoon, you have to think about the consistency of that oatmeal, and you want to duplicate the consistency. So what I would do is, if you're going to add a really smooth baby, like baby applesauce, you know, it's pretty watery, that's going to thin that oatmeal down quite a bit. So you can only add a smidge of that. But another thing you could do is take your, wish I had a regular spoon here in front of me, but let's just use this one. Take your spoonful of oatmeal with formula and then take a little dab with your gloved finger of the puree and just put a little pea-sized amount right on top and try that. Because what you'll get out of that is 99% same consistency and a little pea-sized amount of different flavor. And then maybe you can put a tiny bit more on that. And if you feel like that works pretty well, then you can start mixing it in. But I think what you're trying to do is introduce more flavor. And if the flavor is sitting on top of the oatmeal, then they'll detect it easier. And that's why it needs to be a tiny, tiny bit. And it won't jeopardize the texture that perhaps that child needs right now for a safe swallow. Okay. I think we are almost done here. I'm just double checking to make sure that we don't have any other questions. All right, one last thing to tell you. If any of you still want to get Adventures in Veggieland at pre-order pricing, I don't have any control over Amazon or Barnes & Noble or Target or any of the places that sell this online, but usually pre-order pricing ends the day it's released, and that's tomorrow. So definitely suggest grabbing this online if you want it at 30 to 39% off. But also stop by your local bookstore and support them too. All of them will have it on their shelves tomorrow, and encourage them to order some more for me. And finally, I just really want to thank all of you for being here every Monday night and also supporting me on, I'm going to try not to cry, supporting me on the journey. It took me 2 years to write this book, and I know I've been talking a lot about it lately, but I can't believe it's actually coming to fruition tomorrow. So if you've already got one or you're getting one, if you get a chance to post a 5-star review on Amazon, only if you love it, but I think you will you please do that for me? Amazon, thanks guys. Amazon is one of the main places that that other buyers and retailers look to determine if a book is something they should have on their shelves. And if there are a lot of good 5-star reviews on there, they're going to get this book in the hand of more parents. So if you would do that for me, I can't tell you how grateful I would be. Alrighty, I don't think I see any more questions. I'm going to double check here real quick. Awesome. Thanks so much, everybody. I'll download this in just a few minutes. Oh, wait, I forgot to tell you. If you haven't already joined, go to my brand new Facebook group called Adventures in Veggieland. I'll put the link in the comments, but you'll see the tab right at the top of this Facebook page. It says Visit Group. Please come and join us. People have the most fun ideas there. I post once a day, but we get 5 or 6 posts a day from people all over the world. So I really hope you'll join us. And again, thanks so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Bye-bye, everybody.